Hello everybody, I'm Stephanie. Today we're going to be looking at one particular pose and some of the problems that can happen with this. We're going to be looking at dancer pose, and in Sanskrit it's pronounced Natarajasana. Natarajasana, I'll say it without the flipped R there, pose in Sanskrit. So join me on your mat wherever you're at and let's take a look at this pose. So some of the common mistakes that we're going to take a look at, we're going to begin from the ground up. So this is a balancing pose, so you're going to be coming to standing on one foot or the other. So whichever foot the weight is being transferred to, you're wanting to really grip the mat with all 5 of your toes. So maybe taking just a few moments, we're going to do this with the right foot first, to lift the toes, feeling all 4 corners of the foot down, and then let each of the toes come down one at a time, gripping the mat, almost like your toes are fingers and you're grounding down. So do that one more time. Lift all 5 toes on the right foot, grounding down all 4 corners, and then put down the pinky toe, the next toe, the middle toe, the second toe, and the big toe. So all 5 toes are gripping down. And let's do that on the other side too. So this time, bringing the transfer of weight to the left foot, lift the left toes. All 4 corners are still grounding down, so you're not rocking back and lifting the top 2 corners. And place down all 5 toes one at a time, grounding down, gripping the mat. One more time. Lift the toes of the left foot. Put down the pinky toe, the next toe, the middle toe, the second toe, and the big toe. So all toes are gripping down. So that's the first thing in your foundation. You're really grounding down through the feet. Coming up through the legs, you want to make sure that ankle is stacked underneath the hip. So you're not rocking out to one side or the other. And this can happen a lot when you're coming into tree pose. I see this happen a lot, where people will transfer their weight and then pop out a hip. So the hip is way past the ankle. It's not stacked in. So maybe coming to just a very gentle tree pose, we're going to transfer the weight to the right foot, grip down all 5 toes. Left toes are going to lift, opening left knee, left hip. And then can you pull in your right hip so it's not popping out to the side, keeping ankle underneath the hip. Same thing on the other side. Bring the left foot down, grip, coming up onto the right toes, open your right knee, right hip. If the left hip has pushed out to the side, hug it in, nice and tight. So good. So we found our stability in the toes. We want to stack the ankles underneath the hip, pulling in the hip. And then the kneecaps, this happens quite often. And depending on whether you have hypermobility in your body or not, it's going to be seen to a different degree. I do have hypermobility, so I can show this to you. A lot of times when you're locking out the kneecap and you're pulling the kneecap back as far as you can, and you can notice in my body, my knee actually hyperextends way past my ankle. And so when that happens, whether you're hyperextending or not, if you're locking the kneecap out, you're depending on that lock and you're putting all of that weight into the knee. And that's not where you're wanting to put the strength. You're wanting to lift out of the kneecap, softening it just slightly, feeling the engagement of the quad. So very gently, as you're transferring weight to the right foot, instead of locking out the kneecap, can you soften it just a little bit and then lift out of the knee? Feel the quad begin to engage. Good. Other side. So we're transferring the weight to the left foot. Again, being careful not to lock out the knee, soften the knee, feeling the engagement of the quad. So we're working our way up. We've looked at the toes, the ankles, the knees, the hips. This is one thing when you're coming into dancer pose, you want to make sure that both hips are staying in the same plane. And what happens a lot of time is to give extra rotation, to give extra space to your body. A lot of people will let one hip open way up to the side. So you want to keep both hips in line. And a good way to practice this is to take dancer down onto the floor and just notice if both hips are staying grounded down into your mat. So as you're doing this, you might want to take a blanket and put it right underneath the hip points if your hips are sensitive to this. But very gently making your way all the way down to your belly and noticing how both of your hip points are level at this point. So reaching your left arm forward, right arm's going to reach back, grabbing the inside of your right foot. And we're not going to come into full dancer on the floor here, but we're just finding a little bit of movement. Noticing as when you lift your right knee, do you roll onto your left side and turn your right knee out? So the hip maybe is coming up a little bit and opening up. So finding a little bit of movement here, just beginning to lift the right knee up and down. So this is what we want to try to keep as we're finding dancer when we're coming back to standing position, that both hips are staying level and you're not rolling to one side and opening up the knee or opening up the hip. So finding another little bit of movement here, knee lifts and lowers. And then releasing your right foot down. Right arm reaches forward, left arm reaches back, grabbing the inside of your left foot. Just finding a little bit of movement again, lowering and lifting the knee. Are both hips staying in line, or are you rolling to the right and the left knee is opening up to the side, left hip is opening up? So finding a little bit of motion there. Good. And then bringing that foot back down and then making your way back to a standing position. Working our way up the body, then looking at the low back. When people are coming into dancer, a lot of times, this is a back bend. And with all back bends, you're wanting to keep length in every bit of your back bend and not dumping down into the low back. So instead of crunching down and making that V in the low back, you want to make almost a U shape. So we're going to take a little back bend to kind of find this length here. Hands can come to the small of your back if you'd like to, reaching shoulders back, elbows back, or you can clasp fingers up overhead. But either way, we're finding length, 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 length through the crown of our head, and then exhaling, reaching the hips forward, keeping the length. So you're not dropping everything down, crunching. You're keeping length, as much space and length as you can in the low back. Inhale, come back up. Maybe try that a few more times. Find some length. Exhale, hips reach forward. Keep the length. Inhale, come back up. So we want to keep that length with our back bend because dancer is a back bend pose. So we're working our way up the body. Next, we want to take a look at the shoulders. There has to be some external rotation of the shoulders. And so you're opening up. It's not just keeping the hands where they are and I'm reaching back. The shoulder is actually rolling back on the hand that I'm reaching for the same foot. So taking some gentle movement here, maybe clasping your fingers behind your hips, rolling your shoulders back, open up your heart. Begin to soften your knees, belly pulls in, just taking a gentle forward fold here, but you're opening up the shoulders. Inhale, come back up. Relax those hands down. Maybe do that one more time. Find your clasp. Shoulders roll away from the ears. Beginning to bow. Maybe taking a little bit deeper this time. Just opening up the shoulders. Preparing for dancer. And then inhaling, coming back up. So we're moving on up the body. Another thing that can happen with the shoulders is as you're finding this external rotation, the shoulder will begin to sneak up by the ear. So even though you're rolling it back, you're keeping it way up by your ear. So you want to make sure that it's staying down and rolling open at the same time. So really notice that on this third time we take this forward fold. So clasping the fingers again behind the hips, roll the shoulders open. Can you keep the shoulders down so they're not coming up by the ears? Exhale, find your forward fold. Reach your fist up towards the ceiling or in front of you. Inhale, come back up. Keep that external rotation in the shoulders. Can you get the shoulders down and back? Good, beautiful. So we're keeping all of this engagement. We've looked all the way up through the body. Next thing we're going to look at is the actual placement for the hand. So you're grabbing the inside of the foot, and a lot of people will say, well, I can't reach there, so I'm going to grab the outside of the foot. And so that's not quite what you want to do. That's not a proper modification that you want to take. If you're feeling the need to grab on the outside of the foot, maybe don't take the bow so far. So as I am transferring my weight, we'll take this to the left side first. So I'm transferring my weight to the left side. Left arm reaches up. Right arm reaches to the side, palm up towards the ceiling. Dropping your hand down towards your glute, so pinky towards your glute. Bend your right knee, grabbing the inside of the foot. Both knees come together. So I've got both hips in line. So if you already are feeling that need of, oh, I want to flip my grip, can you find a little bit more external rotation in your right shoulder? And maybe you just stay here for a little bit and play around with this until this becomes comfortable. And then the right foot can come back down. You can do the same thing on the other side. Right arm lifts, left palm to the side, palm towards the ceiling, pinky towards the glute, grabbing the inside of the left foot. Knees come together, left shoulder rolls back. Just finding a comfortable grip here. Beautiful. So come back down. So feeling very open now. You found all the alignment. The last thing is to really find some engagement now. The last thing that people can do when they're coming into dancer pose is to not engage in the foot or the palm. They're just reaching their hand out in front of them, or the foot is just kind of resting in the palm. What you want to do is make sure that you're reaching through the fingers and pressing the foot down into the palm. You're keeping this height then also in the low back, so you're engaged entire body. And you can just stay here for a little bit, feel that engagement, let it drop, and then come back, engage, fingers, toes, pressing the right foot into the right palm. And then release, come back down other side. So we're going to transfer weight to the right foot, finding our inner grip to the inside of the foot. Fingers, right fingers reaching forward, left foot is back in the left hand. Find some engagement. Come out of the hips, lengthen the low back, reach through the fingers, press the foot into the palm. So you've got these opposites working of this reaching and kicking at the same time, and that's going to help with a lot of the balance. So we're going to go ahead and start coming into the pose, grounding down. We're going to look at everything going all the way up the body. So I'm going to take this, transferring the weight to my left foot first. So my left palm reaches up above me. Right palm comes to the side, comes to the inside of my right foot. I'm going to ground down all 5 toes of my left foot. Pull my left hip in. Soften my left standing knee. Find engagement in my left quad. Working my way up the body. Both hips in line. Core is nice and engaged. Finding length in my low back. Keep working up the chain. Looking at the shoulders, right shoulders rolled back. I've got my proper grip. Both hips are still in line. And then finding my engagement, reaching through my left hand up or forward as I'm pressing my right foot into my right palm. And then I can begin to bow from the waist. Keep reaching and kicking, reaching and kicking. Both hips stay in line. Take it slowly if you need to. Stop wherever you need to along the way. Reach and kick, reach and kick, reach and kick. Both hips are still in line. And inhale, come back up. Take your time, right foot steps down. Maybe you take a little wiggle. And then we're looking at the other side. Transfer the weight to the right foot. All those things, right toes grounding down, soften the right kneecap, pull the right hip in. I'm grabbing the inside of my left foot. Right palm reaches up. Core is engaged. Find length in your low back. Left shoulder rolls back. Down away from my ear. Keeping my length. Then finding my engagement. Reach and kick. Keep reaching and kicking in equal amounts. And you might notice that it's a little bit easier on one side than the other, and that's perfectly normal. Keep reaching and kicking. And then inhale, come back up. Foot comes down, palm comes down. Thank you so much for spending the time with me today to take a look at dancer pose, Natarajasana. Blessings and namaste. you.